Yeah, thank you, Shashi, for the introduction. So first, I'll share my screen, then I'll start. Just let me know once you see my screen.
We are able to see your screen, Amit.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. First, I'll introduce myself. Myself, Amit. Uh, Amit Prajapati. I'm technical consulting working in cloud funds from last couple of years and have expertise on the Azure integration. So I've been working from last 1 year on this specific domain, which is Azure integration and connecting the Dynamics with the other system via Azure functions. Then I have been working on Dynamics customization and development from last 3 years. And I've been also working as a designer on some of the um, projects as well. So my today's session is on how we can securely deploy the Azure function and the use the environment media variables and other resources that are present on the Azure platform, right? So I assume that some of the attendees might have heard of the Azure function app that we use for the integration purpose from third-party system to Dynamics, like API to API integrations, right? Now, so why I have choose this session because majorly whenever we have any integration, so let's say consider an integration between contact page of the website to the Dynamics. So whenever a lead is generated from a website contact page, so the record should be generated in the Dynamics, right? So now what happens? Uh, so let's say that particular URL on you are posting the data is exposed to the system, exposed to the public. And so what may happen, some of the bots hack to your website and try to do a multiple request in a second. So what will happen? The redundant data might be created on your system, right? So Azure provides security out of the box, but sometimes what happens, those bots are way advanced that they can pass those securities. So ideally, what we do, we set up the credentials and set up the function keys where it will only allow the request which we have added in the what we can say in the uh, configuration on the Azure. So, so today's session we are going to use the Visual Studio. You can also use the Visual Studio code, and for deploying and testing the Azure function on cloud, you must have the active Azure subscription. So you can go with the pay you go plan, or you can just create a trial of the Azure and play with that particular subscription in your personal account, or let's say if your company provides you the free as a credit, so you can just try out that particular scenario which I'm going to create in this session. Now the third tool which I'm going to use is the Postman. So basically Postman is going to use to test locally, and also once we deploy the Azure function, so we will get the URL. So on that we will test the APIs, how the function will work, if function is working correctly or not. So Postman is a basically API testing tool. Now moving ahead, I quickly introduce some of the let's say topics, some of the topics. For example, what is Azure function and why we need to use that particular Azure function. Now, as you know, like if you have a system like Dynamics, and let's say consider Dynamics and Business Central, and you are creating the integration using the, let's say, the integration tools which are available on the market. Let's say Scribe, or let's say other kind of tools. So sometime what happens for some of the clients, those kind of tools are very expensive because of their licensing and pricing of the solution, right? So Azure function is one of the cheapest way that you can build the integration from scratch, from system to system, and it also provides you the scalability whenever you Now it depends on the plan that you have, but the basic plan, which is a pay as you go plan, or you can say the consumption plan, right? It's also provide you a scalability where it can handle the multiple requests from coming from the one system and process the data and send it to another system. Now, as a function, not only can be developed into the C# programming language, it also supports the Node, Java, and PowerShell, and also Python. So let's say you're coming from the background of Node.js, you build a website, or build a React Native app, or let's say React apps, right? So you can also build as a function using Node because you ideally have a background of Node.js, how the runtime environment work, right? If you're coming from the background of, let's say, machine learning and other platform, let's say R, so you might have come across with the language which is a Python. So you can also build the Azure function using Python. So um, now coming to the plans that comes whenever you create a function app. So let's say if you have trial, so I usually recommend to have a consumption plan. So ideally in the consumption plan, 1 million request is free for you, and whenever that particular limit reaches, then you will start getting the um, um, credits cut off. Right now, in the there are three plans: a consumption plan, premium plan, Azure App Service plan. Now, consumption plan will only pays for what you compute within that particular. Let's say if your function is executing 1 second. Let's say in one day your functioning is only executing for 5 minutes total, so it will only cost for that particular 5 minutes, not for the whole day. Now in the premium plan, what will have, you will have a dedicated machine where your function will be deployed, and depending on the what plan you have, you will have the limitations as well. So let's say in consumption plan, the function which is executing, it has a timeout of by default 5 minutes, but you can extend it to 10 minutes. But let's say if your function is executing more than 10 minutes, automatically it's get terminated there and the new batch will be arrive. So due to which what will happen, whatever the data is pending to process after 10 minutes, it get lost. Correct. Now, let's say if you want to process the more data, you can go with the premium plan, or let's say if you have the pricing model of, let's say, Azure app service plan, you can go for that. So depending on what business requirement you have, what budget you have, you can choose the plan and accordingly create the Azure function. Now, coming to the next slide is the today what use case that we are going to see. So currently what I have set up, I already set up one use case, that is there is a contact page on my website which takes the input of, let's say, first name, last name, company, your email address, and then the case. So let's say it will be a it creates a case. So what will happen? You can put the case title and case description. So whenever the user fill up the data on that particular website and click on send, what it does is send a request to the Azure function. And what it does, Azure function process that particular data, converts into three entities in the Dynamics. First is a contact, then second is account. Then after creating an account in contact, the contact will get associated to account. Now, the case title and case description is defined to create a case. So what will ideally happen? Three entities will be created in that scenario. Now, this particular scenario is already set up. So what today we are going to do, how to secure this use case so that any of the your credential for Dynamics and other related platform, let's say you don't have contact us in as a source system and destination is not Dynamics. Let's consider you have business central to business central integration from one tenant to another tenant. So you might save your business central credentials in the in code itself, but that is not the recommended way to store your credentials. So today we are going to see how to store your credential in the environment variable and how to configure the Azure function so that your Azure function take the credential from Azure portal itself directly. So you don't have to define a credential inside a code itself. And also it also become insecure because your code becomes the DLL if you are developing the as a function in C sharp and that particular code resides in Azure. Let's say one of the hacker get into your code and try to get the DLL. So he can extract the code and use a credential from that DLL. And it's very tough because Microsoft already have provided the security in Azure itself. But let's say sometime it might happen because uh, uh, any system is not as much secure because even the Facebook and Microsoft get the vulnerable attacks on daily basis. So but we need to be make sure that our system what we design it must be secure in all the scenario. So now I'll show you one quick demo, like what are the system that are uh, present. So just give me one moment. So yeah, so so let's say I'm creating, filling up this form. It will take some time because I've set up some of the API config needs to be done. So sometimes it's take time, and also I'm sharing my screen. So that's why. Yeah, so you can see the case is created in the Dynamics. All sales team will connect. So it's just a message that allow user to get a feedback where the some request has been submitted. If there is a failure, it will throw an error that and it will show the message contact to the admin. So now if I move to my Dynamics environment, which is connected, so let's say this one, share my screen. So you can see. Um, the account has been created. Um, I guess this is the old one. Just one second. I'll open this one. Yeah, so you can see the account has been created and the contact person is already assigned and the related cases is uh, uh, whatever that we have input in the website. Now, if I open the case details, you will see customer and the contact person is already associated on that particular case. Now, let's say let's consider a scenario where your endpoint has been exposed of your Azure function and it has been used by another website to send a request. Now, as you can see, my domain is Azure function dot Varsal dot app, right? So Varsal is just to inform you that Varsal is a platform that I use to test and deploy the Node application and the HTML application. So that's why you see the was any is like it's a top level domain and it's a subdomain of my project. So now let's say you have let's say one of the this is the hacker. Let's consider my website as a hacker and my URL has been exported. So my this website what is trying to do, they have input my URL as a endpoint in their contact form. So what will happen? So whenever the user will try to submit a request from their website, so data will be pushed to my um, server and it creates the lot of record in the Dynamics. Let consider the there are 100 requests in 1 second. So it what will do it will create multiple records in Dynamics. So to secure that, what you can do, so I'll open my Azure portal. So I'll explain you what are the resources. So this is my Azure function, which is deployed, which creating the record in my Dynamics, right? And its endpoint. So if you go to the section where um, you can see the cause, so you can just open. So what it does, so the full form of that is cross origin resource sharing. So let's say if this is not enabled, let's say I'll disable this and I'll just remove this function URL and just I'll save this. Now what will happen? Any website which has the endpoint, which has my endpoint, it's try to request the Azure function from a browser. What will happen? It will never allow or Azure portal won't allow that particular website to send a request to this endpoint. So whatever the endpoint that I'm trying to say is the function that are present in the function section of that particular app. So once you go to the function, you can see this is a function process contact info. So if you click on that, you get the function URL. Let's say this URL is exposed. So I will wait for it takes 1 to 2 seconds to load the function URL because it generates. So let's say this URL is exposed to anyone, right? Now, as I have removed the configuration from the security setting, so if I try to, let's say, submit another request from this website, let's say Amit, let's say CloudFronts 2, and mm, you can see it will never allow your request to be submitted on that particular until and unless you have added the allowed URL. So now I'll just close this one. I'll just refresh this and I'll just copy this domain and just go to the APIs and enable that particular enable access control allow credentials and copy this URL. So you just I guess you don't have to provide the slash, and once I save it, let's try to resubmit it. Now let's say a new name Priyesh, then say ABC company, let's say abc at the rate gmail.com and test for, right? We are unable to submit the request. Let's say I just send this. You can see uh, it has been submitted, and I'll go to the dynamics again and just try to, where is the dynamics? Yeah, let's say I'll just move it to customer service because the cases are not visible. So let's say go to the cases, and if I'll see what are the cases that has been created, so you can see this case has been created now, right? So let's say uh, this Azure function is the generic Azure function which allow the payload as a first name, last name, company name, email, case title, and case description. And you have to reuse this endpoint on your another contact page. So what you can do, so let's consider a new website. Let's say I don't have website now, but let's consider Azure function 2. So what you need to do to allow that website to request on your Azure function, you just need to copy this URL and you just need to add that particular website link over here so that this website can be allowed on that particular section. So this is the one way that Microsoft has told us to like to add the website, all the origins that gonna use your HTTP trigger function applications. Now I'll just remove this because there's no website that is exist right now with that particular URL. So I'll just remove this. Um, Now I'm going to use the Postman. But before moving to the Postman, I'll just show you the code which I have written for the Azure function, how um, quickly we can create the Azure function project into the C sharp. So, so this was just a quick heads up on what we are going to do in the next 1 hour as well for the keyword configuration. So, so I'll just quickly open my Visual Studio and just show you how we can create the Azure function project for C sharp. So, so currently I'm using the latest version of Visual Studio, which is the 2022, and it has a preview build. So now let's say so whenever you open the Visual Studio, you can just click on the create new project. So ideally, if you have created multiple projects with Azure functions, so that the project template will automatically get available to you. So you can see, but if it is not available, so you can just search it like, I'll just change it to C sharp and let's say search for Azure function. So currently, you can see, I'll just select the project, uh, click on next. I select the location, let's say this one. Now let's say PPC demo and just click on next. Now it will ask you like which platform you use, like what type of, it's a .NET Core or you're going for only .NET or let's say .NET framework. So currently what I'm using .NET framework. So you can also go with the .NET Core or let's say .NET 6. So what majorly changes, it's a library support changes for from moving from .NET framework to .NET Core, because some of the library doesn't support in the framework, but it does support in the .NET Core. So I prefer to have my other function in .NET framework because we usually develop plugin, and plugin development can be done in the .NET framework previously. So that's why I'm going with the .NET framework. Now, if you can see these two section where there's a type of function. First is, so Azure function is not only related to the let's say HTTP trigger. There are multiple type of triggers that can Azure function have. So let's say you want to develop Azure function which can be scheduled, right? So you can create a time based trigger of Azure function which is available over here, I guess. You can see timer trigger, and it will allow you to add the schedule. So this schedule pattern is a con based job schedule pattern. So but today we are only focusing on the HTTP trigger, because in the real life scenario, if you going to have the system integration which is going to have a real-time data flow from source system to destination system, right? So you must have the HTTP trigger. So now I'll choose the HTTP trigger. Now I'll just access right, I'll just mark the access right to anonymous, and I'll explain you. And this is the major factor in the like it's a second factor. Previously we have seen the cross origin type of like which secure the endpoint, and another one is the access right of that particular function. So currently I'm going with the anonymous. So what anonymous does, so whenever you are deploying your Azure function on cloud, right? So if the access right is set to anonymous, what it does, so anyone with that particular URL can call your URL, like let's say without any access key. So if you have allowed that website to have to be present in your course configuration, and the access right is anonymous. So what will happen there, the website can do a multiple request to that particular either function, but we are going to see the function and what is the function and what is the anonymous like admin. So currently I'm going with the anonymous. I'll just click on create. Yeah, so what it does, it creates a Azure function and it has a template. Like you can see, the function is function name is F1, and the return type is HTTP response, because ideally if it is a HTTP request trigger, or let's say trigger, it does response back a HTTP response message. So that's why it's you can just change it to, if you don't want to response back anything, you just make it void or make it a string and just return the string as your response message to the website. Now, whatever the configuration that we have done during the creation of the Azure function, you can just change it. So let's say if you authorization level is anonymous, you can just remove the anonymous, and if you click on a dot, you can see function system user and admin. So I'm just going to leave anonymous. Now, the second and third parameter basically defines what type of request that Azure function should allow. So let's say if ideally what developers do a mistake during the creation of Azure function, they don't change this configuration which is present over here. They leave this configuration as it is, and what happens, let's say if security breaks, if simple GET request to that particular Azure function triggers the um, execution of the method that they have written inside the code. So ideally, what I recommend to remove the get and just put it at the post. Now, I never use the route. I am not sure about the parameter, but these are the three parameters that we use majorly, and this is how you create the sample request. Now, I'll just quickly show you how you can run the Azure function um, locally. So so if the project, let's say if you have a multiple Azure function inside the project, so you need to click on set it as a startup project. Currently we have only one, so that particular project is set as a startup project. Now you can see it, you have PPC demo. So whenever you click on that, so it will try to build the project, and it will open up the CMD of that Azure function. So whenever you are setting up the project, you need to download the Azure CLI from Microsoft Document, and I guess the current version is 3. I don't recollect, but it's 3, I guess. So you can see the local URL will be generated, and if you copy this and just I'll open the Postman. Just one second. Sorry. Um, Now let's say I'll just go do the get, and if you see according to the code, it requires a parameter which is the key's name. So let's say if I just try to send a request without any parameter, so what it does, please pass the name on the query string on request body, correct? So what I'll do, in the parameter, I'll just put the name, say Amit. You can see now as we have passed so this is the custom code that you can write whatever you have business logic for integration, or let's say if you are doing testing, correct? So now as we have passed the parameter, what it does is take the parameter, concatenate with your name. You can see if the name is null, then it create the bad risk request, and whatever the error you have seen previously, it will show mirror. Now if the parameter is present, then the code will return will be 200, and the parameter is like hello, whatever the name that you have passed. Now, as I mentioned previously, that ideally what developer do a mistake that they um, allow both type of request on each functions. So let's say I remove this get. So ideally now the function configuration says that uh, you don't like your Azure function don't allow the get request. So let's say if any web crawler from any website tries to, let's say this URL is exposed and web crawler is only set for the get request and is try to get the request and like consuming your Azure function bandwidth, because whenever they any resource is deployed in the Azure function, they have a specific scalability as well. There is a limit that is set by Azure as per the plan, right? So let's say try to send a get request which is not allow. I just save this. So whenever you are changing any code, you just need to rebuild the code and just retest it. You can also hot load the Azure function, but I won't recommend because sometime during the build process, whole code is not built properly. Some of the code get failed during the testing itself. So I recommend to cancel the debugging and rebuild the process. So let's say now I've changed the code and we'll try to do a send request again. So what it does, 404 not found because your Azure function is not allowing that particular request, right? So let's say if I do change the request to post and I'll try to send the request again. So now it will allow. So you can see, so this is how you, this is also one of the minor changes that you can do to secure your Azure function or change the methodology for of your integration architecture. So I'll just close this. So this is how I created the basic Azure functions. I move to the code that I've created, which integrates the this contact page. I'll just refresh this just once again. Mm, yeah. So I'll just open up the code of Azure function which connects this form to Dynamics, and just give me 1 minute. I'll Yeah. So now if you see, currently the system is the Azure function is connected to Dynamics. So ideally, if you know that you need to add the nugget packages, right? Correct nugget packages to connect the Dynamics. So I'll just quickly show what are the nugget packages currently in use for this project. So if I go, you just need to create a right click on the uh, project and just move to the installed nugget packages. So currently, so ideally, depending on who is developing what Visual Studio, what version of Visual Studio, and what type of SDK installed in your system, you might see the different. Sometime the neo sorting is not required because it's a dependency of this XRM tooling core assembly. So I have explicitly installed this latest version because sometime during the build process it failed because of the dependency. So this assembly you might be aware of because whenever you're creating a plugin, this assembly is required. Now this XRM tooling core assembly is required for connecting if you're not writing a plugin, but you are connecting the dynamics from third party, let's say console application, right? So this library is required for that. Now this is the SDK of that particular Azure function because we have created the project type, right? Now this Newton soft is basically to serialize and deserialize the request from JSON objects. So basically, as we are using the APIs and major data payload is not in XML format nowadays. It has been changed to JSON. So to convert those JSON to, let's say, class objects and vice versa, let's say to convert the class object to string JSON. So this library is very useful in that process. So I'll just quickly go through the code that we have written. So what in this session we are going to modify this code as we go to use the environment variable and how to store the credential in the system. So if you see my code currently, it is also set up in the authorization level of anonymous, and it's allowing the get and post both. So what I have declared over here, one variable, which is I organization service. If you're aware of, like, this service is responsible for generating a method of create, update, associate, disassociate request for Dynamics. So that's why I've um, declare that particular variable. Now, if you see my folder structure, I usually follow my folder structure. So basically, DTO, data transfer object, let's say whatever the responses that we are going to see, or whatever the custom class we are going to see, that will present in the DTO section. Whatever the constant that we are going to store, let's say be it a system variable, be it a constant of the entity name, or let's say field name, that will be stored in the constant folder. And the common folder is basically to write a helper class of, let's say if you are connecting business central, you can write a helper class to connect the business central to send a request, so send a get request to the uh, business central. So so over here I have created a CRM helper class which allows my Dynamics 365 to connect this application. Now you can see whatever the code I have written, all the credentials, URL, username. So this is not a normal username, it's a client Azure ID, Azure ID and client secret. Now you can see the credential is stored in my code itself. So let's say if anyone found this code, right? What will happen? They can use this client ID and client secret, and let's say authorization type is client secret, and they can build up application which can mess up your data directly, and because these are very sensitive data for your system, and you might have the invoices of a customer with the lot of transaction data, and everything can be run up, right? So now this is a connection class that I have created, which returns the I organization service, which I use for further processing. If I go to the main class, which is this one, um, so whenever the service, so I have wrap it up with the triangle catch block. So if there are any exception inside this code, so what it does, it return the error response with a bad request. So it will return 400, I guess. I suppose I don't remember the code. Otherwise, it will return the 500 code, which is the internal error. Now, if the service is present, let's say your credential is correct, and now so organization service is present, right? Now, so what I do, basically, whatever the data that I'm receiving on the Azure function, is deserialized into the contact response. So the file which I mentioned, the DTO. So this is the response that I receive on the other function. And so first name, last name. If you compare, I'll open the second. You come, so you can see. Sorry, if you can see um, the payload and the, like, the whatever the response object and the form field are same, right? So whatever the request I'm sending, it's a keys are same, like first name, last name, company name, email, subject, and message. Now, what I'm doing, whatever the payload I'm getting, I'm just deserializing that particular into the response object, and I'm sending to the another helper class, which basically creates the sales record in Dynamics. So if you go to, it's a simple code, not much like if and else. Um, if you see the context, so you can see the first account is created, and then once account is created, the GUID of the account is stored into the variable, then contact is created with the first name, last name, and email address, and I whatever the account ID is been created, I associate the contact using the entity reference and create a contact. Now last entity, which is a case entity, it gets created. You can see the title, description, customer ID, and primary contact ID. So let's consider you are building an application where you are you have to transform a data from one response to another. So this class can be your field mapper, right? So any integration has a basic uh, functionality. So where you get the input from a source system, consume the data from source system. You create a function where the source data is transformed in the destination data, and you have another function which gets the destination payload and send it to the destination system. So currently this is how um, I've created. So it's a connection. Let's say I'm just adding the comments. So after this session, and I'll also this source code is available on GitHub after this session, and whatever the website that I've created, that source code is also available on GitHub. So let's say this is the get source data, correct? Now, and this is the converting source to destination, correct? You can see this is the pattern. Now, the another concept that now you understood the what is the code that I have written for integrating the system. So I'll just quickly unshare my screen for a second, and I'll move to a next topic, which is the function key. If you remember that I have mentioned the function key, which is access level. So there are three levels, which is the, if you see there are five levels, but if during the creation we have the anonymous, then we have admin, and we have function keys. So just give me a second. And share my PPT. If you have any questions, meanwhile you can ask. I'm just opening up my port as portal. If you have any questions, you can ask. I can answer. How do you implement the threshold in the other function stop forcing function where more? Okay. Um, the good practice to stop payload to application side troubleshooting before the proceeding start. Okay. So answering the first question, how do you implement threshold? Now, it depends on the system, the source system and destination system. Why I'm saying that? Because let's say if hundreds of requests coming on that particular um, function. So ideally what Azure does, it scales your Azure function to consume all the APIs and parallel process parallelly. Now, uh, you can buy a premium plan, which is basically they have 30 minutes or 40 minutes limit. So ideally Azure function has a hybrid connectivity, so the processing power is way higher than the console application which are running on the VM. So 4,000 requests or 4,000 record creation for the, I'm just considering the dynamics request. So 4,000 dynamic request can be covered in 10 minutes. So if I say the 1,000 request can be easily covered in the 10 minutes, because I have built an application where that data has been pulled from SQL, let's say 8,000 rows, and in 10 minutes the 4,000 rows has been processed. So what I do ideally, so I keep the timer trigger on that. So whatever the record has been processed, I mark them as a flag yes. So whatever the next time if as a function is running, right? So what it does, it will get only record those record where the data not has been processed. So on the Azure, you can also use the queue. So before the request has been sent to the Azure function, you can assign that particular queue. So what it does, so your request will first come into the queue, then queue request send a request to the Azure function. So whatever the request that will be pending, will be present in the queue, and later on it can be processed. So you can, depending on the architect that you are doing. So ideally I recommend to use a queue then the Azure function on that particular scenario. And the second question is it good practice to store the payload request body received from external system to application inside the troubleshooting before? Currently I'm not using the application inside, so I'm not sure. Not sure, but ideally, if you have to store those during let's say payload, what I recommend to use a queue, um, because you can check the queue later on as well. Um, so I'll share my screen again. I hope that answers your question. I'll open my Azure portal now. As I mentioned previously, the Azure function has three type of access. So if I open my code, right, I'll just close this one. This is a sample code. I'll open the code, contact contact us code. Now, if you see, the authorization level is anonymous, and this is what has been deployed, right? So if let's say I'll uh, get this URL and open the Postman, correct? If I have body, I'll just copy this. If I just send it, what it does, it will, I guess, process the request. Now, you might have one query that why the postman is even allowed to send a request, because this is not a browser that we have, like this is not a URL that we have it added in the course. Right. The postman have a agent which is allowed to do any type of request. Correct. So let's say you can see, as this is anonymous, so any postman or let's say other website can send a request. Now what I'll do, I'll just change this to function, and I'll just redeploy this application. So to redeploy the one of the sections that I have not covered. So whenever you are deploying, so you just need to right click on that. And if you have existing deployment, otherwise you can just create a new published profile. So currently I have existing published profile. So I'll just click on publish. What it does, it'll take 1 minute, 1 or 2 minutes, depending on the source code or depending on the load that you have on the other function currently. So it will build application and process the request. And once it's done, you will see the green bar over here that it says that your Azure function has, your app is ready. So meanwhile it's publishing. If you have any question, then you can ask. I guess we have one more question. 2 minutes timeout on the other function common scenario. Any solution for you prefer? So other function don't have 2 minute timeout scenarios. It has 5 minute timeout in default whenever you're creating the application. So meanwhile it's publishing, I'll show you. So whenever you are deploying the application, you can see the multiple file has been created. If you see the host.json, correct, and there is a local dot setting dot json. So whatever the environment variable you create, it will be present on the local settings. So the host json, if you see, it's a blank, correct? But ideally what will it will have function timeout, and ideally it's set to 5 minutes. So what it you need to do, I guess, I don't remember the syntax, but it will be like 10 minutes, I guess. So you can just put the 10 minutes and republish the application. So what it does, it increase your time or function timer. So currently I'm removing this as it is not required. Yeah. So second question, CRM SDK only support .NET framework. What version of Azure function you're using? So currently I'm using one. For if you move the Azure function to three, it will require a .NET Core, I guess. But currently I'm using one, as per the CLI, I suppose. So that's why it's allowed the .NET framework. And for the CRM SDK, yeah. If your client wants to build a API so that external system can interact with the Dataverse Connect community, what is the best way? Ideally, I'll not prefer to create a Azure function for that particular, let's say, if you are to uh, consume the Dynamics itself, because Dynamics comes with the API, which you can send it to developer. They can access the Dynamics API. If you see the URL of that API, it's a whatever the environment slash data dot it's I don't remember the URL, but they have, and you can access it using OAuth. So I don't prefer you to create as a function only to access the Dynamics directly. So let's say if you are building an app, mobile app which consume your data from um, Dynamics, right? So you can directly access the Dynamics. So as it has published. So I'll just try to send the request again. So you can see it's 1401 which is unauthorized, right? Because the deployment that we have done, its authorization level is function. So now to allow the request, um, so what you need to do, you need to generate the, I guess, function key. I'll just try it. I'll just reopen this because it will now generate the function key of URL. So each function will have the function key. So if I'll wait, you can see now it has a code. Let's see if I copy this function URL and just try to, now you can see that it's unauthorized. But if I try to copy this one, just try to send this request again. You can see now the request has been successfully created. So now there are, you have seen the two ways to, you can secure the endpoint itself. First is the having the course set up before you do a deployment on any of the website, or let's say any of the integration platform. And second is to set up the authorization level of that function. I never use the admin one, but if you follow the Microsoft document, you will find when what are the scenarios where you can use the admin and user and systems, because every resources which are present, let's say this is the resource, right, on Azure. Every resource can have their own identity, so that's why you can use this user or system, I suppose. But I have never used that, so I'm not able to comment on that. But you can follow the Microsoft document for that. They have the detailed documentation on that, and you can follow some of the developer which who develop the integration based on the Azure, and they works on that on those. Yeah. Now, um, so I guess we can give 5 minutes break to any like everyone, and we can continue at two. Sorry, three. I guess at that
Yes, Amit,
fine.
we can take a 5 minutes of bar break and we'll
Yeah.
return at 3.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, so Vipin, the question that you have now, it depends on the scenario where, let's say, mm, so what type of data that you have? If you can put that in chat, or you can unmute yourself, maybe. Hello. So let's say I assume that uh, you have a SQL table, let's say, on CRM data. Okay. We're moving to cloud. Disable batch jobs and premise. Okay, so for migration, data migration you're talking about, right? So there are much easier solution that are present on Azure itself. If you are moving from on-premise to cloud to migrate the data, correct? So Azure function will be your cheapest plan because but one of the key is you need to develop the code, and that is sometime hectic. So what you can use, you can dump the data on Azure from on-premise to SQL, and just transform the data directly on Azure, and just put those data from logic apps which is present on Azure to Dynamics directly. So there are several data transform tool. Let's say data lake is there. Um, then there is the SQL, but pricing comes actually with those as well. But cheapest solution will be Azure function, but you need to develop the code for that. Yeah, you can go the you yes, yes, you can also go for that. But recurring, let's say if you are have any logic, basic logic, and you just need to have a cheaper solution to transform a data, or so let's say send a data, or let's say get a data from any system and just dump it to the Dynamics, you can use the timer trigger. Because sometimes what happens, let's say if you're connecting a system, source system where there is no availability or webhooks, so you might not create a HTTP trigger type of integration because they don't have a webhook. So from where you will call the URL. So what you do, you set up timer trigger, right? And in let's say 1 hour, in 1 hour of interval, you get the data from the source system, what the data has been changed from last one hour, and you dump into the Dynamics directly, or vice versa. You can do that. So yeah, you can create the timer trigger, and there are lot of triggers as well which directly connects with the other applications. Let's say queue is there, I guess. So you can directly connect to the queue. So let's say you have dumping the data from on-premise like SQL to Azure queue, and that queue can recall your Azure function. So there are a lot of ways. Now it depends what is your client's budget, or let's say what is your budget, and what type of data do you have, and what is the amount of data that you are going to process. So it highly depends on that actually. So I'll start with the next point, that is the using the environment variable um, for the deployment. uh,
Amit, sorry to interrupt. You
yeah.
need to share your screen.
Yeah, I'll share. Just give me 1 minute actually.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, just let me know once you see my screen. So
Yeah, we are able to see.
yeah. So now, as you can see, my current code is storing the credential in the helper class, and that is not the right way where you can store the system credential. Because ideally, what may happen, let's say in 1 month you are changing your credential. Let's say eventually in 1 week you are changing your credential, right? So, as per this deployment, what you need to do, you need to, whenever that credential is changed, you need to redesign the, or let's say change the credential in the code, redeploy the application again and again, right? So what is the best way? So if you are coming from the background like development background, or let's say if you are developing application which is Android, so you might have aware of the environment variable. So other function does have the environment variable. So you can see the file which is local.setting.json. So this is the uh, file which store the environment variable, or let's say if you have the SQL credential, you can just store it over here. So as we have the core username, client ID, client secret, and auth type. So what I'll do, I'll create go to the file. I'll just add the values. Let's say CRM URL and just copy. So this is only for local development. I'll show you one once we uh, deploy the application. So where it will use the variables on the cloud. So I'll just quickly creates these variables. Just show it to you. Find ID, just find. hmm, So there were other type of authentication that were present in Dynamics. Previously, there was Office O365, but that was deprecated recently. So so if you guys have any deployment with those type of authentication, you might need to change the your application to uh, allow to connect using the client secret and ID, because your integration or your application might not work now. But you have older system, it might fit what, but Microsoft has pushed the changes. So now, as you have stored, now how to access this URL, how to access this credential from the environment variable, I'll show you. So let's say I'll open the helper class and just comment this out, this region. Uh, I'll just copy this and I'll just uncomment this, and I'll just let's say from environment. So I prefer to use region in the code so that it's easier for to view the code and what the code does, right? So let's say URL is also present over here. So now what I'll do, one second. So what you need to do is replace this with the environment dot get variable, and you just need to pass the key. So let's say this is so what I'll do, I'll just quickly copy all this, copy, 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 and I'll just quickly go away and just, so this is the clipboard history which I'm using. It's actually very makes your life very easy. You can just copy multiple uh, settings and paste at once. So let's say this is the client ID. So I'll just copy client ID, then say secret and say um, auth type. Now what we'll do, we'll try to debug and just check if this type like this URL is coming or not. So let's say I'll just put the debug over here on the line number. Just one second. Yeah, I'll just build this application again. right? Now, as you might have aware of debugging the plugin and console application, this is similar case you can debug. So whenever you are running the application locally, and if it is a timer trigger, it will automatically trigger. But it's if it is okay, just one second. Okay, I forget to add. So I'm just adding this to string to trim because sometime what happens, developer do a mistake where they add the spaces before and after, sometime copying the credential from their clipboard. So I'll just try to build and just check if there are any errors. No, there are not any errors. Let's try to run it. See, just give me 1 minute. So seems correct to me. Just one second. Let me remove the code once again. Just give me 1 minute, guys. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, you can just ask. I can answer in parallel. Just check what is the issue with the code. Just close the Visual Studio and just reopen the code. Just one second. Remember, I edited the host file. So by mistake, never remove uh, the JSON blank JSON over here. So otherwise, you will get the errors. So I'll just rebuild the code. So it's a runtime error. So during the build process it will never. So I'll just try to rebuild it. Just check if yeah now great. Yeah. So now try to run the mm, function locally. Just copy this URL and do a post and I'll just try to send. So when you're doing a local developments, even if you have uh, authorization label to anonymous function, it doesn't matter actually because you are doing the local development. So as we got the debugger over here, so I'll just so we'll check if we have the yeah, you can see we got the data what we want from um, environment variable. So now I'll just uh, close this one. Now what we'll do, we'll copy this payload and just try to send it from uh, the local development. So give me 1 minute, draw. I'll just choose to just try to send it again. Okay, sorry. Uh, it's not running. So majorly one of the mistake or let's say developers do while developing the API, they don't save their payloads in Postman. So ideally, whenever you are doing in development, right, you create your own collection and start storing your APIs. Because sometimes what happens, you don't remember what payload that you have used during the testing and development cycle, and if you are debugging or something, you tends to forget things. So whenever you are creating any new request, just try to save it in the new collection, or let's say you make a version of that particular collection and share with your colleague, because sometimes the postman delete the collections as well as the time goes. So this was a quick tip for developer that is going to do a development, or let's say use the postman as uh, testing tools. So there is one more tip at the end, using the postman as well, so you can do a bulk testing. I'll show you how. So now you can see uh, the request has been successful, and it is now created the record. But let's consider, now I try to push this application on the cloud. I try to publish this application, right? But remember one thing, that we have not set up the environment variable. This is a local variable, so did not flow or did not deploy with the Azure function. Now let's consider we don't require this code, right? And I'll just rebuild and redeploy this application um, on the cloud. I'll just try to send a request from our contact page. Sorry about that. Let me know, guys, if you're able to understand like what we have been covered till now. If you have any questions, just uh, ask me. Or I mistakenly didn't publish, I did click on start. So just try to publish, and it will publish in 1 minute. So in the initial, if you're doing the publish on, let's say, first time, so sometime it takes time, but once you publish the function again and again, next time it will not won't take time, because the published profile has been already configured from local machine to the server. Now there are two things that you need to consider. We have two things that we have not set up. First is the environment variable, and second is the connection. Previously the connection like authorization level was function, like, sorry, it was anonymous, right? So let's say even if we provide the environment variable, it won't work. So what I'll do, so let's wait till the publishing is finished. Actually it's completed, you can see over here, but it's take time sometimes. So I'll just go to the um, request again. This is the deployment. Let's see, test. I'm just putting the random data over here. Um, ABC2. Um, let's try to send. Let's see what happens. You can see now. Um, First thing that we need to do, I'll open my code as well for contact. So this is my code. If you see, so there is JS file to which this is the function URL. Now what we need to do, so go to, let's say, as we have seen in the postman, right? We were not able to send a request where the access key, if the access key is not available, right? So we also need to change this URL, right? So now what I'll do, I'll just quickly go to the portal and get the URL, the function, the URL with the like access key, and upload, like change this URL and redeploy it. Just give me 1 minute. Uh, Always take time actually. So I'll just copy this code, change it. Oh yeah, I'll just open this. I'll just open my Git. Just give me 1 minute. Git add git commit dot. So I'm using VS Code because this is my personal website like demo. So I deployed using Git directly. So let's say added the Azure function URL just to a Git push. So whenever the any push happens to my Git repository, so the platform which I mentioned previously, which is Versal, you can see this is the deployment one, right? So you can see I just deployed this, right? So it's currently building and it has been pushed. So it's a CI/CD platform, and so whenever it's connected to the Git project, so whenever any project has been pushed, so it applies your changes directly on production. So let's say I'll open this URL again. Now, one thing to notice, we haven't configured the environment variable on a portal, so it's still gonna throw us the error. So now, how we are going to configure the um, system credentials on Azure? So let's say this is your Azure application. So there is a section called as configurations. So after this, we are going to see how we can store the same credential using a key vault and how to reference the key vault. That is a final touch that we are going to give to our integration. So let's say I'll open, it sometimes takes time. So let's wait. Let's just reopen, just give me 1 minute. So whenever you are getting any load issue with Azure, just try to reload the platform itself. Sometimes it gets stuck at some request, and it's sometimes when you're sharing a screen with the teams. So whatever the credentials that we have created on, let's say variables that we have created on here. So what we you need to do, you need to just copy this. So you can, I'll recommend if there are a lot of credentials, you just click on advanced edit and you can edit in the JSON format. But let's say if you have only 4 or 5, just click on new settings, paste the, so what I'll do, I'll just copy this and just paste and just click on OK. And one of the major mistake, or let's say sometimes developer uh, miss is after adding the credential, they click on back. Ideally, whenever you change the credential, there is a highlight shown to you. You can see the wallet color and the star mark over here. So it denotes that there are changes that have been like haven't been saved. So you just need to click on save, and so you just need to wait until the icons are um, removed, and just click on refresh to see your changes. And just you need to make sure that whatever the key and key value pairs are there, you need to add properly, because um, otherwise your application won't work at the runtime itself. So I'll just copy this of type, um, just click on save, continue. So you just need to wait and you can just click on that, so you can just see if the changes has been made or not. Yeah, so Bipin and share, feel free to post your okay. To answer your question, can we create a multiple Azure function keys for different customers? So what you can do, ideally keys, if you're using the same function for different people, you can create it. but one of the problem is you cannot restrict, because you can let's say if you're creating a three keys and three keys for respective customer, let's say customer A, customer B, and customer C, right? What you can check on that in your code, you need to write something to let's say if customer A needs to restrict on both the keys apart from the key which it has been associated to, right? So what I recommend to you, let's say if you have multiple customers, so best option is to redeploy that application on the different app function. What it does, so you just need to redeploy the same code on the new Azure function resource itself and just pass that particular function, because then you will have the separate as a function for separate customer. Now, in terms of cost, it will won't charge you much. Why? Because let's assume the customer one gives you 500 requests, customer two let's say give you 200 requests, and let's say customer three gives you what is remaining, it's 100 requests. So collective request cost will be the same as the whatever you create. Let's say you created three separate functions, so overall cost will be the same. So ideally, what I recommend to use a different Azure function for different customer, but the code deployment will be the same. You just need to deploy on the each like publish separately on resources. So the cost will be remain the same. So why to use the same function? Because it will hamper your existing function if you're sending the multiple requests from multiple websites. So it's better to distribute your load, right? I hope this answers the question. So the credential has been saved. Let's try to test it again if it works. Otherwise, we need to debug this again, like we have to do previously. I'm just putting the random data. So ignore those. How can you allow and deny of Azure API address? Yeah, you can see. I'll answer your question. You can just give me 1 minute. So now you can see as we have added, so there are two security that has been attached now. You have deployed the application, correct? Where the code doesn't have your system credentials. Now, one thing is secure that anyone with have access of your code does not have any system credentials, right? Now, second thing, your endpoint is secure because you are accessing that particular endpoint using the access key. Now, I understood that whatever the code that I have written that present in a JS, so this code is exposed, but ideally when the web development and anything happens, you have a backend server which post a request. So backend server is not visible. So let's say you developing an application of Node. So ideally backend will be the Express.js, which is the code is not visible because the build version will be created. So URL will never be visible on the browser itself. So just for this session, I've used the normal JS so that we can test it. So we have secure endpoint by two ways, like using the course, using the function key, and secure the credentials using environment variable. Now let's say you have a requirement where you're not a global admin, right? And your admin says you need to secure this portion as well, because if you go and see, let's say, um if you hover on this credential, sorry, uh, yeah, so if you click on that, you can see the credential is still visible. So let's say if you are not an admin but you still able to see this resource, you easily able to see the values as well, right? Now to secure the this credential, and you can put the references. Now we are going to use the key vault, which is the encryption, like it's a key vault as the name suggests. It store your credential in the encrypted format, and you can reference that particular key vault, like whatever the keys and secrets that you have in the configuration file. So let's say um, we have reference. Let's say we have added the reference, and if you're trying to, you have access to this resource and it's try to check the configuration, and if you try to open it, you will never see the credential. So we are going to see how to configure the referential keyword. Just give me I'll meanwhile I'll answer the uh, question. Yeah, so we've been there is the concept called API management in the if you go, so in this session that is not covered, but I'll show you, like if you see oh yeah, there's a section called as API management. So you can build your own restriction on an authorization authentication on that particular function directly. So if you create a new one and there is a header, and it checks like from where the request is coming, so you can just restrict those APIs directly. But there are some other ways as well. I have not explored those, but there is way you can restrict particular API. Let's say if you just have to allow those API. So there is way on that as well. So I'll move ahead with the session. So next point is um, yeah, one thing that I missed, that let's consider that whatever the development that I'm doing, this is UAT development. Now let's say if you want to make the same development for the production, that then what you just need to do, you just need to click on that publish. I'll just go to the new. I'll connect my service. It's my account. Now, what you can do, let's consider this is a UAT deployment. Let's now create the same function. Let's say it's a production environment. Um, okay, create. So it will take 1 or 2 minutes, I guess. Now, let's say I have one more environment. I guess I'll check if I have one more trial environment or not. I'll show you one. So this is the PPC demo. I have one more environment. I'll check if I can. So meanwhile, it's creating a new function. You can ask you can ask your questions if you guys like, if anyone have. Meanwhile, I'll check if I missed any questions. I guess I've missed one question, which is yeah. The question is from, so if the client wants us to build the API so that the external system can interact, get put postable with our data was system custom entities, what would be the best way and why? If given we have options like custom APIs functions. Okay. So in this scenario, as you can see, Azure function accept your custom payloads, right? Now you what you can do, you can create a Azure function which accept the parameter. Let's say first parameter is operation. Second parameter is the table. Second, third parameter, let's say filter. Let's say if the operation is get, right, and you're building an Azure function which can pull the data, like do the operation based on the operation parameter. Let's say you are sending a request where operation is a get, table is account, and filter is the created on date is today's date. Let's consider that. So what Azure function will do, it will process, get the request operation. Let's say if you can write a if the operation is get you, and then it will ask, it will, let's say, service dot retrieve multiple, and based on that you can create a dynamic fetch XML and add the filter on that, correct? So what it does, in the Azure function you will retrieve all the accounts based on the filter which you have passed, and you can just convert that particular uh, um, response from dynamics into your custom response and just revert it back as a return from that Azure function. Similarly, you can create your post request and delete request as well. So you need to think as a on the system level, like how the system and data flow should happens from source to destination. But um, it depends on how you design the parameters of your functions. So now Azure function has been created. So I'll just click on publish. So now you can see I have not done any single changes in a code, and the production deployment is ready with the same type of code and same what we can say same logics. So if you go, but you need to manually configure the so you need to come manually, but you need to manually configure the uh, configuration file because um, it doesn't have any system credential. Now you can see the function is deployed, but it don't have the same credential. So what, let's say on UAT you have this environment, right? But on production you can have, let's say, prod, correct, on Azure level, right? So whenever you are doing any changes, let's say you are doing on UAT part, and your client say, yeah, you are like clients provide you sign off on the UAT, and what do you just need to do? You just need to redeploy that application on the production Azure function. So what environment variable does to you is it makes your life easy when it comes to have a same set of code for multiple environment. You just need to configure your environment credentials, the application setup. But now we are going to see how to uh, secure this one what we have on the UAT environment. Let's say so to do that, what we need to do is to create a one resource that is key vault. So to create a resource, just click on create resource. So now key vault comes with a price. Now some might not able to afford, some of the client not able to afford, but if they want the security, then you need to communicate what are the plans that are available. So I'll send you all the details of the plans, the pricing that are available on the document itself. And you can also, there is a calculator on the Azure portal where you can calculate all the resource pricing, and you just send the code to your customers so that based on that you can decide what needs to develop and what needs like what are the do's and don'ts you need to consider in the development process. So let's say I'll create a PPC key vault. How much time we have? I guess 20 minutes. I guess that's
Yeah,
enough. Yeah,
we
that
have
will be
20 minutes,
enough.
Amit.
Yeah, so I guess that will be enough. I'll just show this. This is the last, I guess. Um, but meanwhile, you can ask the question if you have, because I guess we are not going to get additional time for questions. So meanwhile, I can ask because it will take time actually to configure this. Meanwhile, I'll just explain. So it's running the validation. So what it does in the background, it creates a storage account, and it's check if you have right subscription to create a key vault or not, and then it's check with the region and everything as well. So now you can click on review and create. Let's see if that's created. Yeah, and there are multiple ways to store the credentials. Currently, I'm using the key vault. It's expensive than other methods, but what it does, it store your credential in different type of encryption. Now they have also a plan, like so. Let's say if you are going with the basic plan, they have a specific type of encryption, I guess. But if you go for higher plan, they have SH1 to 56 like those certifications as well. And you can also add certification based uh, authentication for other system. Now it depends on source system and destination system, but there are multiple ways to do that. Yeah, so I'll just go to the resource now. As I mentioned, that every resources have different identity in Azure. So to in this scenario, we need to enable the system identity so that this Azure function can be considered as a principal user, or let's say principal it can generate the principal ID, so that we can just add in the access policy. So what is the access policy for the keyword? So basically, so whenever the keyword is created, the only the owner of that particular keyword can able to do operation on that. So let's say if you are adding the keyword reference on any of the Azure function, if they are not added in the access policy, you will never able to read or write operation on that particular secret, let's say keyword. So first you need to enable the system identity. So you can go to the settings of that particular Azure function and click on identity. And once you click on that, you can see the status is off, and just you just need to click on and just save. So what it does, it will take a 130 to 45 seconds, and it will generate the ID which you can use to add this other function in the access policy of the keyword. And ideally, what I recommend to, if you are only adding the reference, you just need to set the access policy to get the secret. uh, so it also secure in a one way that let's say if hacker or any bot got the control of your Azure function, let's say if it tries to upload any wrong data in your keyword, but your the access policy is set to the get only, they will not able to do it. So that's why like Microsoft and Azure, like what are the developer they have secure like they have make your life very easy when it comes to the security point of view. So I'll just copy this and I'll move to the key vault. Sorry. I just move to the keyboard and you can see there is settings called as the access policy. As I mentioned, I was the owner, so I have different permissions. So there you can, as I mentioned, like there are three things you can store in the keyboard is the keys, secrets, and certificate permission. So now we are only going to use the secrets. So let's say currently I'm the owner, so I have, you can see all the permission you have, right? Let's say I'm so you need to add that particular function. So to do that, you just need to create like click on add access policy. So once you do that, you need to, let's say you can create the access policy based on the template, but I'll not do that because I just need to set the gate. Now you can select the principal basically it's a individual resource. And so if you are not able to see your Azure function, it means that you have not enabled your system identity from that particular section which I have shown you previously. So I just add this and just click on add. So also one thing that developer do a mistake. So data is available here. So what developer does, it's click on back or let's say close this. So but it you can see it show you the icon of save. It means that this particular configuration is not saved yet. So I'll just click on save. So once it has been saved, now what I'll do, I'll just click on go to the secrets and click on, let's say, secret. And what we need to do over here, so let's say these are the credential that you have to store. Now what I'll do, over here there is one restriction that you cannot use the special character, correct? So you need to consider adding this credential as it is. So let's say I'm just putting this, I'll just remove the prod, otherwise our development will Break. So just copy this. I'll just create this. Now so once that is has been created, ideally what you need to do, you just need to click on that and you need to click on copy. And now I'll open the another tab. And this is one of the hectic process that you need to go through, because if you have, let's say, 20 credential, you need to set up and it will take like lots of hour, like lots of your time, but it's a one-time configuration that you need to do, and it's very secure. And when it comes to security, you need to do the efforts. So let's say I go to the configuration now. As the name suggests, it's a CRM URL. So what we are going to do, we are going to change this one, and we are going to add Microsoft dot key vault. I'm just assuming I don't mistype anything. URI. See, on save. So this is the reference URL which you can use. So let's say in future the credential has changed. So what you need to do, you don't need to create a new one over there. Just click on that, create a new version, copy the URL of that, and just change the URL. So I'll just save this. So it's currently being saved. So now I'll just refresh this page. Now, if the identity is saved properly and you have set the proper access policy, so once the configuration will load, it will show you if the reference is correct. So if the reference is wrong, so let's say what I'll do, I'll just go to the, where is the access policy? I'll just remove this user, correct? Now I'll just try to, let's say, edit this, copy this for my this. Save this. I'm just showing the demo of why the access policy is required. So once it's saved, um, so I'll just re-enter, just resave it. Why I'm removing and adding, because sometimes what happened, the credential is not saved properly. So you just need to remove and save it again. And you just need to wait once this is completed. Just to do a refresh. Now you can see as my Azure function is running, the credits has been deducted for whatever the request that I've done. So it is in rupees. So you can see the full credential was 7,300, but the only 0.1 I guess, and it is nothing in terms when you convert in the dollars. Um, where is the URL? Okay, it hasn't saved. Just once. Is it possible to get a username from a consumer who is invoking Azure function so that we can implement the impersonation to create in Dynamics under his name? Yeah, so what you can do best is to pass the email address of that particular user who is invoking the, uh, let's say if you have website and that person is logged in at the same email address. I'm just providing you the approach. And what you can do, you can just pass that particular email address as a owner, and you can just find the same owner as a user, and just set in code itself. So you can see now it's showing as a cross. It means that the access policy, or let's say URL, is wrong, or the access policy is not set. So what I'll do, I'll just add that particular uh mm, sorry, that function URL in the One more tip that you should enable your clipboard history. It's very useful when you are doing multiple copy and paste in the development process. Mm, so I'll just try to refresh. If actually refresh will not work, we need to again remove and re-add it. So now if this deployment will work, so what it denotes that your credential is stored in the keyword, correct? Your uh, Azure function does not have any credential. Like the code does not have any credential. Your actual Azure function does not have any credential stored, but the key vault is having the credentials. Now, what is like how it is useful in the development process? So let's say, meanwhile, I'm just doing this save, and I'll explain you. So let's say if you have a restriction from your admin that we will create a credential, the developer will never see the credential, let's say, because sometime due to the security policy of the client, they are not able to share the credential, but they can share the key vault URL with you. So what you can do is just create a configuration and add that particular key vault reference in your development, and just test the application directly on online. So what it does, it secure your, like, it help us to build a trust among the department itself, and also your organization comes under the security compliances as well. Like these are the method, and all this method which I am talking today, it's all recommended and all present in the Microsoft document. So they don't have in the Microsoft document, they don't have this screenshot. So that's why I prefer to give this session. And let's try to just once again, I'll just try to refresh meanwhile. Yeah, so there are other steps to secure some of the request. So Bipin, whatever question that you have asked today, uh, I guess you will get the answer to all those questions. I guess there is one document link which I'm going to share after this session. That document has summary of all the scenarios where you can secure an Azure function or secure the Azure development itself. So now we'll try to retest this. Uh, so now key vault is added. So let's say if the key vault is working, then this request should work properly. Let's try to, let's say Amit, this time not Amit, let's say Bipin Kumar, let's say test, let's say Azure email Bipin @azure.com. Let's say testing from key vault. Um, we are not okay. I'll just copy the question itself and just paste. Let's see if this works. Otherwise, we need to debug again. You can see this is working properly. We'll check in the dynamics if the record has been created or not. So this is the trial environment actually. So we are using the customer service hub, which have a case. So yeah, testing from keyword, you can see. So everything is working. What um, we have seen, we have, so let's say Azure is the account. Let's see if the contact has been created or not. Yeah, you can see the contact has been created and everything is done. So this is from mind. And so I'll just one of the scenarios that you can build through this integration. I'll just unshare my screen. Um, so one of the major key factor to look into the Azure function as your integration tool is, first is the cost. It's very cost effective if you have small and medium business. It's very reliable and very high performance in terms of processing the request and scalability. And there are analytics. So let's say if you have a budget, proper budget, you can enable the insights on that particular Azure, what it does. So whenever any request fails, it will have analytics why it fails, and every logging will be done in that. So the pay as you go plan doesn't comes with the analytics you need to enable, but it comes with a certain cost. Um, and um, other thing that yeah, I can understand that there are some additional cost will include that. First is the development cost, which will be considered to develop overall integration and using the 2 or 3 resources from a company. But in the long run, it's the cheapest way that I can suggest for any type of integration that you can have with the dynamics, or let's say if any system which exposed with the REST API, if you have. So yeah, so I guess this is from my end. And uh, if you guys have any questions, you can just unmute yourself, or you can just ask me on uh, in the chat. I can answer. I guess we have couple of minutes so that I can answer you.
So audience, please feel free to post any questions.
Hello. Yeah, we have. Okay. Um, I'll check if there are any questions there which I have missed. S- mm,
I think you have covered almost all the questions which we received.
how do you implement the retry mechanism? Yeah. So for the retry mechanism, as I mentioned that you can enable the insights, application insight, and what it does, it creates a log. So let's say if you got any failure log, right? So you can reinitiate that particular request. So let's say if you're getting 100 requests and out of 100 requests you failed. So I have never used this scenario, but I'm just recommending. So what you can do, let's say out of 100 requests you fail with the 30 request. What you can do, you create a queue, and based on the log that you have, you just reinitiate that particular queue. So any items if added in the queue, you just reinitiate the as a function. Or let's say if again fails for second time, you just send the request to or send an email notification to a developer and or the owner of the record creator. So this is how you can set up a mechanism. But now it's as I mentioned earlier, it's highly depend on the system that you are like you are trying to integrate, or let's say you are trying to set up a pipeline of like data pipeline into that. Mm. Yeah, I guess all the questions have been asked by Vipin. So it's a very interesting question, Vipin, that you have asked through during my session. So I check if I have missed any of your questions. Um, this will take a sec. Okay. I guess I have covered all the questions.
Yes, I
Yeah.
think
So
you have any
yeah.
new, yeah, from
Yes.
Vivek.
So last question. Okay. What would be your approach to stop functions failing continuously from last 2 days? Automatically informs about team to look into it. Yeah. So basically, what is my approach? So basically, if anything fails, so let's say if my system is connecting, let's say one scenario where you have an integration with Dynamics and Business Central, right? In the Business Central, you are creating a customer. And whenever the customer is created, the request has been made to your other function which connects to your Dynamics. Now, what we usually do with our development, we create our integration log entity, which always creates a new record in the Dynamics whenever any failure happens. on Azure function because the connection will never disconnect from because the system credential is correct. So let's say you have special character in the name, right? And the code is not able to process that special character. The special character is, let's say, and person, because and person sometimes fails your whole code. And so what it in the try in the catch block, you can create a error entity, and what it does, it will create a log inside the dynamic itself, and you can just review the log. And one of the best thing that you can do whenever you are creating a log inside, let's say, application inside or in the dynamics, you need to save the body of that particular or let's say request identifier, like so that the developer can see what was the primary key of that record which got failed. So eventually when we are debugging that particular scenario on production, or say replicating the scenario on the UAT, so you will check what are the failure, and you can debug remotely or you can directly debug locally. So Azure function also have a functionality where you can debug remote like directly on server itself. We never use, but you can copy the profile, publish profile from server, and connect the VS Code to the server and just send a request to the server directly. So what it does, it will capture all the profile in the local machine, and you can start debugging and that process on production directly. I hope that answers the question. Bipin. Yeah, so I'll share my links, whatever the document that I've referred for this session, and my social handles. Does anyone have questions now? So that yeah, so I guess we don't have any more questions. So I thank you first, like all the organizers for organizing this session, and amazing audience to ask such questions during the session that make the session very interactive, and also we slap to um, to sponsor this event. And thank you everyone. Uh,
Thank you, Aman. Thank you so much. It was a well detailed session, and Amit managed to answer all the questions. We had very engaging, interesting questions from the participants. Thank you, everyone. Now, next we have another session from Girijesh, but before that, we will have a 5 minutes break. So let's just a 5 minutes break. After that, we will join for be in the call. We'll join for Girijesh's session. Thank you. Hi everyone. So we'll resume our session. Before we start the session, we'd like to demonstrate our sponsors for the event. Today's event was sponsored by Labs. They are one of the pioneers in the online training and education materials, especially for the professionals. As you can, we have already shared that link in the chat, and you can see this is the website. And they have different courses for cloud computing, DevOps, Oracle, Microsoft technology, cybersecurity. So for all the attendees, registered attendees, today Labs is sponsoring 1 month subscription, and for the winners of our quizzes, they are giving 1 year subscription, premium subscription plus their goodies. So thank you, Labs, and we encourage all of you to visit their website and register for their courses. And they have different plans and pricing and different learning options, a number of questions which you can practice for your certification exams as well. So thanks everyone. So let's move to our next session. Our next session is by Girijesh. So Mr. Girijesh is a senior technical architect in KPMG Microsoft Business Solutions Malta. He is an MCT also. He always very active in the community and help others to learn, and he is very active in training sessions. So thank you, Girijesh, for joining the sessions. Now, after you, Girijesh, you can start your presentation. Thank you.
So, good afternoon, everyone. I'm clear now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So, first of all, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining the session, and as well as a very big thanks to all the organizers to give me this opportunity to speak in this forum. So, today we are going to talk about a bit on the Power App Portal authentication, as well as a small detail on the Power App Portal, what exactly and how the journey started from ADX portal to till now the Power Pages. So let me share my screen. Nijo, can you make me presentative for that? Okay, let me open my. Okay. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. So, before moving to this, the first of all, the agenda for the discussion like today, we are going to talk about what is the Power App Portal and how the journey started from ADX portal, a bit about the template that come with the out of box, which align with the business need, and gradually we'll move all the authentication in the Power App portal. After that, we'll see what are the settings available in the portal, and gradually then the registration process, how the user can register in Power App portals, what are the medium of registration, what are the ways that a user can get access of the portal, how the authentication management done inside portal, as well as at the end we'll see a demo, basically to local authentication as well as how we do authentication on Azure AD B2C. So let's start. So before starting, just a quick introduction about myself. Uh, as you know, I'm a graduate. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer, as well as I believe learning in light. That means whatever that I learn, I share my knowledge with others, as well as I also learn from the others' knowledge of their research, their learnings. And whenever I get off from my work, I used to travel and travel a lot. I'm a backpacker. So I usually plan my travel journey over the extended weekend. And this is my LinkedIn URL. And this is my blog, which I'm trying to write whatever the knowledge that I earn, I share in my blog, in my blogs. So that's all about me, and let's start to the next. Okay. So first of all, what is a Power App portal? If you need to define, so in a single line, we can say it a powerful low-code website for the external users. So if I talk about the journey, when I started my journey with the CRM, and somewhere 2015. On that time, we were having a company known as IDS Studio, and they were maintaining on-premise portal. Basically, the idea of the portal, like we cannot give license to every customer to access our CRM data. So if we need to expose our CRM data to our external facing customer, then portal was the way where we that they can harness the data of a CRM. And on that time, it was a free of cost that was coming with the CRM instance, and there is a few limited entity data that we can expose to our external facing customers. Gradually, in somewhere 1st October 2019, Microsoft changed the licensing mechanism, and on that time they created a three flavor of apps: the model-driven app, Canvas app, and the portal app. So on that time, basically Microsoft acquired the ADX portal and they relaunched the portal by name of Dynamics 365 Online Portal, and the online portal again rebranded as a Power App portal. And recently, Microsoft again rebranded is like Power Pages. Gradually, whatever user that using the portal, that will automatically move over the Power Pages as of now. So the major change, like a Power App portal come in existence in October release 2019, and in fact this allow deliver a complete content management system out of box with all the content stored in a Dataverse. As a result, the content can be edited throughout the Power App Portal Studio as well as directly using the portal management app. So if the portal is this is external website, and on the backend side we are having a portal management app that is a model driven app. So let's move to the next question. How basically what portal can do for us? So now nowadays we are having a modern audience, and we are having a very specific business needs also. So like whatever that customers that we are working with them, they are expecting a brand, a specific brand, or organization brand, like their theming, their logos, and everything, and the personal experience. So the Power App portal offers this capability that you can design this according to your customer brand, customer orientation, as well as a lot of features like we are having we can attach knowledge base article, we can write a content over that so that your customer can read and do the needful as for as according to their business needs, as well as if nowadays we are experiencing a huge customer, they are on the mobile devices. So portal give us the flexibility on the rendering capability on the seamless that you will render the content over the web, over the tablet, as well as on the mobile devices. So these all these things are taken care by the Microsoft uh, out of box. You need not to bother about what the device your customer using, from where he is accessing. You just need to focus on your development, and without any writing a single line of code, it's all come out of box. It's a framework beauty. So only you need to know how to configure the things, and things are ready for you within a couple of minutes. That's a power portal. If we talk about the modern business need, so first of all, the one thing like the intention to develop a portal to interact with your external facing customers, external facing users. So first of all, as the business is growing, then you cannot have your dedicated support system to answer all the customers' questions in a one way. So that's why you just the portal give a privilege so that they can your customer can log in over there, right? They can create a service request for that, and you from your backend, your help desk team will see their queries and they will reply over the portal, so that uh, you don't need a dedicated communication between your customers and your the help desk. There's a medium where they can. This is a platform where the both can be synced. They can talk. They can resolve their query. They can ask the whatever your customer wants. The second, that fulfilling the modern business need. The sales is a need of everywhere. Whatever the business that you are doing, you need a lead. So all over the form, you can expose just a contact us form or maybe a lead form where the user can fill their query, and your backend team, your help desk team can work on that query and create a pipeline basis on the queries done by your customers. On the same pattern, like we are a lot, I would say a big multinational company is having a huge workforce, employees. So They also on the same way like self-support, they also having a employee service portal where employee can go and log their things and get the results as well as. And the last, we are talking about the mobile workforce. Definitely it's a catering uh, all the needs of your the mobile users. If we talk about the portal capabilities, basically there are four things that come in a picture. First of the content, the functionality, the extensibility, and the last is the security. So as we talk about, you can manage all the content that you are entering over the portal from your backend portal management app. So you need to just change those changes on the model driven your portal management app, and the changes will reflect automatically on the portal. Right. The functionality, like I said, the whatever the changes, whatever the development that you want, that will be ready for you on a counted minutes, on within a couple of minutes. You do the changes and things are ready for you. You need not to bother about the backend, how the things are getting placed. You just need to focus on your changes, on your development stuff. Extensibility, this also the portal developed using a liquid framework, and there's a lot of opportunity to extend the portal capability. Like out of box, we are getting everything, but this may possible like the out of box component cannot fulfill your business needs. So it's also provide a way to that we can write a custom code JavaScript, or maybe we can change in the liquid template so that we can work on our current business need with the portal also. And for like a security, one of the major contexts in a Dataverse. So in like in Dataverse, we are having a roles on the same pattern. On the portal, we are having a web role. Web role is usually for the authorization. Before that, we are having authentication mechanism that we will talk later in this session. That's a main agenda for the today's discussion. So shall move forward. Any question till now? Nijo, I'm not monitoring the chat window.
We haven't received no questions so far from the audience, so you can move.
So just to let you know, I'm not monitoring the chat window. If any
No
question,
problem. We are monitoring. We are monitoring.
Okay, one specific thing like this is a privilege. I would say this is the good work for with from the Microsoft. That's they have launched a variety of flavor for the portal. Like you are having a different target, different customer. So they what exactly they did? They basically launch a multiple template so that you can quick start your portal development without bothering much. And these templates are nothing like if you're talking about the community portal, partner portal, employee self portal. So there are set of out of box entities which are already exposed over the portal environment. So the basic framework that you want to create, that for that you need to put effort, which Microsoft taking care of already by using this portal. If you don't want to use any portal, there is also privilege that you can create a portal from blank, so that you can start your own customized portal according to your business needs. If you talk about the, for example, like employee self-service portal, we talk about the big MNCs having a multiple, so many employees. So they just create a portal over there where employee can go there. They can authenticate themselves by their organization ID from their organization Azure ID, and they can create a service request for that. So moving to the next specific, the main agenda for the authentication overview for the portal. So the very first condition, we are having a variety of user in our system. We are having a system user that could be that will be licensed user. We are having a business users. But the first condition to get access of a portal, that you must be associated as a contact in a system. If there is a licensed user and if he is not registered as a contact in a CRM system, then he won't be able to access the portal. That's a mean, I would say, first of thing. You need to be associated as a contact. And if we talk about the authentication point of view, we are having a two type of mainly authentication, right? First of all, the local authentication, and the second is external authentication. In the local authentication, your credentials, I would say the password detail that is stored in a CRM data was contactable. I'll show you how exactly it's stored. And for the authentication, if you're doing authentication from the external side, there's a number of ways available. You can authenticate your user by Azure AD B2C. The other channels, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Gmail, there are a number of, I would say, provider, authenticator provider available, which portal uh, from which we can integrate our portal to authenticate our audience. If you're moving to the next part, these are some the authenticator provider, the protocol which uh, we are using in a portal. So for local authentication, we need not to follow any protocol. It's internally managed by the Dataverse. And nowadays, Microsoft is in a phase of deprecating the local authentication. They are more focusing on the external authentication. Basically, the OpenID Connect is on top of the, I would say, the Open Authentication Protocol. Basically, that's a the Open ID is a protocol that's a profile and extend the OAuth 2.0 to add an identity layer on the same pattern like a SML that stand for a security assertion markup language is also again an open standard for exchanging authentication and authorization data between identity provider and the service provider. We all know open authentication now. We are using a web API, and everywhere we are using a OAuth authentication for our third-party integrations nowadays. And the WS Federation, it's again it's identity federation specification. This has been developed by the BA system and the BMC software, Canada INC. And nowadays, if you talk about the contribution in the WS Federation, so we are having a number of companies like IBM, Microsoft, Novell, HP, and VeriSign. Basically, they are contributing on a day-to-day basis on WS Federation layer to make it more, I would say, verbose to capture a variety of system for the authentication of threat. So now moving to the next part. So let me show it to you before. Okay, so these are the, I would say, the authentication provider as of now. If you open, there's a URL. If you open the make.preview.powerapps.com and you will go to the portal authentication settings, so you will get all the available provider as like local sign-in, Azure Active, ADB2C, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Microsoft. These are already existing, but not limited to this. You can add your own provider. If your provider is following the protocol that we discussed in last slide, you can add your own custom provider to authenticate your user. That's the beauty of a portal, and that's the way they are supporting the Microsoft supporting their customers. That's it. I think we are good to go now.
Yes, yes.
Okay, that's fine. And let's move to the next session. In a portal, we are having mainly two types of setting. First of all, authentication setting, and that's known as site, and the content setting, site setting, and authentication setting. So before moving to this, let me open a portal environment, which I've already having with that. So content snippet and the authentication site setting. So whatever the settings that we are doing for authentication authorization, if I select you, you can see these are the authenticator related setting, whatever the setting that you want to, like if you want to enable Facebook authentication, Twitter authentication, then these settings are come in the picture. If you want to enable our user for the registration, so okay, one thing, then we can define it here. And the other thing, like we are having a content setting. So if I move you here in this portal, like this is the user authentication page. So if we want to change content of this the page, then we have to do it by the content snippet. So like if you want to change the label and everything, then we'll manage by the content snippet. And if you want to change, if you want to restrict authentication, signing, registration, reading, then you can do it from the site setting. I'll show you a practically demo after this the in while the demo session. And again, we can manage the all the our user detail on the portal contact, and there's a tab name and web authentication, where we will see like what are the whether the user has confirmed email or not, the mobile phone, all the factor like would say like email confirmed, this flag, if the email has been confirmed, that is a validation code has been emailed to and confirmed by the user. Unless the email is confirmed, it cannot be used for the password reset or two-factor authentication. For the mobile phone confirm, basically this is used similar to the email confirm, except that text SMS. In case of email, we are sending an email to the user. In case of mobile phone confirm, we are sending SMS to the user. And the two-factor authentication, basically something we are knowing, something we are having. This is the concept. Like the password, but the OTP that you will get on the runtime over your phone. So that's adding extra layer of a security for the portal users. You can untake the login enabled. So the login is enabled for this the portal contact user. If you untake, the user cannot log in over there. And same out the account lock, basically will managed by the lockout enabled this checkbox. The another aspect like a lockout and date, this one. So basically when the contact is locked out, this column define what it's going to be unlocked automatically. A column used for this to lock a contact many minutes, and which is controlled by the site setting also. Like if you want to prevent lock any user for a specific time, you can just define a setting in a site setting. So for that minute, it will be the user will be locked out for that minute. And at the same time, if you want to disable the local login authentication for this user by this parameter, you can just disable that for the local authentication. So let's move to a small demo here for this. So I just created a small portal app. Let me open it. Let me close this one. I think no question till now. We can move to the demo straightforward.
Yes.
So this is the portal. The portal I just project just to sake of a time. If I'm going to provision the portal, that is going to take 10 to 20 minutes. So that's why I provisioned earlier. If I open this on the settings side and will open the authentication option, so you will get all the providers available here that I shown in the last slide. Ooh, quick. So these are the provider, as well as if you want to add any your provider, you can add it by this way. The Microsoft launched another portal like with the this portal is a preview page. If you make dot preview.powerapp.com, so by this way, this enable a few more settings which I'll discuss later in this demo session. So first of all, I'm going to show how exactly we can do the local registration for a portal. So the first condition, the user must be a contact in the system. So if I open this and I browse this setting, we're having a sign-in page, and I can register here. If I'm just putting demo1, .com, demo1, putting the detail. Let me hit the save button and see how exactly the user details are stored in our CRM system. So if I go to my portal contact, and if I go to the contact here, and I can just hit advanced find here. So I'll show you how the user detail, the username and password stored in the data works. Right. I'm going to create a new view. If I edit the column, add a column. So we need to select the password column for that, nickname and password. Password. Last name. Password has, and the first name. And that's all. If I, the first name contains demo, simple. You can see the password which we have entered. In this way, the data was stored the password detail. In case of a local authentication, you can check. If you open this record, so you can change the password for this user from here as a system admin, as well as you can enable this user to reset the password from the self-service from the customer portal. So that's the first way anyone can get access of a portal. The second way, like we can send an invitation to user to join that. So if I create a new contact here, and I want that user should join the portal. So let me create a new record. Number 2. That's all. I will hit the save button. And I can create an invitation for this user. Simple. I'm not going to in that flow like how we can automate the sending invitation by the available the workflows of maybe on the Power Automate. I'm just going if a demo how exactly we can redeem the code invitation code and get associated with the portal. So if I'm creating a new invitation and I'll hit the save button. And after the saving the record, if I go to the advanced, I'll get this invitation code generated by the system. And on the portal, if I'm just sign out this, and I'll go to the sign in, I will hit the redeem invitation and just paste the code and we'll hit the register button. So this invitation will retrieve the detail, and I'm just putting demo 2. Demo 2. Okay. I will save it, and if I'll go to this invitation general, you can see the email ID and other details like we have. It's already populated. So this is the basic way by the portal we can authenticate our user. and thereby creating a contact, direct registering over the portal, or the second way we can create authentication. Sorry, we can send an invitation to the user. Now, if we see the site setting and you have your administrator has a disable the user, I would say the local authentication. So the next way, how we are going to enable the Azure ADB2C, we'll see it here. So earlier, if on that time, basically, before the preview portal come in a picture, we have to configure, we have to create a Azure AD B2C tenant in a portal. We have to configure the user flow and everything. And then we have to provide the URL on the portal side. But if you go on the preview feature of this, let me open this. Okay, let me sign out first. And if I hit the sign in, I'm not getting a way to Azure AD B2C authentication. So what I'll do, I'll go on here. Okay, let me duplicate this tab and make dot preview.powerapp.com. So this is the make.powerapp.com and this is the make.preview.powerapp.com. If I'm going to open the settings and click on the authentication setting, and if I hit the configure, then we are getting only two options. So the setup ADB2C user flows, the protocols, everything with that we need to define on the Azure side. But with the new launch of this portal, Microsoft, everything that you can take it from this side only. So if I go to the app, here only we are getting a two option in the old UI. Although the new UI is a bit buggy, but it's working perfectly for our need, in fact, to configure the Azure AD B2C authentication. If I hit the configure this one, so you are getting, you can see there are 5 options where you can select the tenant register application. This feature with the earlier portal you need to do it on Azure side, but with the new UI this you need to take care of here. So if I go to my Azure portal, right here I've just created a resource group PPS Saturday, and this is a blank. I'll create the tenant and everything from the portal only. So if I go here, right, and if I hit the next button, then we need to select the tenant. So if I select this, and if I want to create a new ADB2C tenant, then I just hit this option, and this is my Active Directory subscription I need to select, right? For the resource group, it will list all the resource group available in this tenant, and I've just created this the PPS Saturday resource group. You know, if you're creating a resource group and suddenly you are checking on a portal site, so this may not reflect, because if you're creating a resource, this will take a couple of minutes or maybe 5 to 10 minutes to reflect those changes in the portal side. So if you're doing parallelly everything, so wait for a minute, that you may encounter error. So be patient while configuring this. So PPS, I'm just putting the domain name, and I'll hit a new button. It will take a couple of minutes. Basically, in the background, just creating a ADB2C tenant in your subscription and aligning all the resources that needed for your user authentication. If I go to here and hit the refresh button, Okay, it's not reflecting here till now. It will take a couple of minutes to create that. Till now, if anyone have any query, we can utilize this in the waiting time.
Of now, we have no other questions received.
Okay, that's fine. I'm experiencing a slow internet this morning. What about you, Nijo?
It's find my side. Maybe some network maintenance activity happening there.
So I'm just creating a new application name. Basically, this application will register in your AD, right? And I'll hit the next button. Can you see this has been created a tenant in the Azure AD B2C, and I'm creating a policy for identity provider. Basically, one is for the sign up, and the second is for the password reset, I believe. And if I open, hit the create button, I will open this tenant. That's all. We are good to go. Everything is green tick. That means we are good to go for sorry, Azure AD B2C authentication. If I open this here, in background, what's it doing here? If I go to the app registration, we have registered application PPS Saturday. That's working here. And if I go to the user flow here, it will show the user. We have created a two user flow that needed for your or authentication, the and password reset. That's a doing that's already created. Before that, all these activities we need to do it separately in Azure, and we just that URL need to associate with the portal. But with the new UI, it's a I would say very easy to configure ADB2C. If I go to here and the close button, and if I close button and I'll go to this signing portal and I'll hit the refresh button here, we'll get a button here for ADB2C. Okay, that's good. We are here. And how exactly the settings are managed in portal and in the app? If I go here, portal management, and open the site setting, and if I select my website, which is PPS Saturday, can you see this? These are the settings which portal generated automatically while authenticate while Azure for AGB2C. These are or these are the key value pair for that. So next, let create a user by ADB2C. This is not limited only. You can the registration page that you can change according to company brand. You can change your brand image, everything. You just need to go here, and if you go to the company branding, so you can change your company email. Let me open up file here. Pictures if I'm having anything. if I had the save button. And I need to synchronize the changes, that's all. So that whatever changes that we did, we need to edit this. And we need to add the sync configuration. Okay, let me open a fake email address here so that we can do the registration. Fake email. Just copy this and I'll go here. Yes. Send the verification code. Okay, we got the code here, and I will just copy this code and I put it here. Verify the code. That's fine. And these are the policies that you can change according to company needs. What are the password policy? Everything is configurable. I'm not going in that deep. I'm just taking a basic demo how to configure it. I'll hit the create button. Okay. I'll hit the update button here. So this user we have authenticated by our ADB2C, and how the details store in a model-driven app. Let me open here. Okay, where is okay here. In that case, if the user is authenticated with ADB2C, it will not have the password as this detail store on Azure at Azure level. But in case of a local authentication, the user detail will available here. So that's all target for today to go through with what is a portal, how we can configure the local authentication, how we can associate a user with a portal, and how we can configure with Azure AD B2C. Now the floor is open for a question. Anything? If you do have any.
So please feel free to ask if you have any questions. You can unmute yourself and ask to Girijesh, or you can type in the chat as well. I think there are no questions coming in. We'll get a few more minutes.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, I think there are no further questions from the audience side. Thank you, Girish. Thank you so much. Audience, you can reach out to Girish is active in the online platforms like LinkedIn. So you can reach out to him if you need get in touch with him. Thank you, Girish. Thank you so much for joining and sparing time to do this presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank
So,
you. And thanks and the community, thanks Nijon community to providing me speak in this forum. And it's really very good to share my knowledge with others as well as learn from others and learning. That's all. Thank you.
thank you. So we have the quiz next.
Yeah. So we have the next round of quiz coming up. So I will be sharing my screen. Uh, are you guys able to see my screen?
Yes.
So I will be running the fourth round of our quiz. So I would request every participant to just browse into kahoot.it from their mobile phones so that they will get a page to enter the pin. So you can see the pin in my screen.
Pin is 1582315.
15. Come on, guys, join in. We have 28 members. I can see. Afreen and C, you were at the top in the first round.
Come on, guys, please join. So
So we'll wait for another 20 seconds and then we will start.
yeah, wait.
Yeah, morning I have seen like Afrin, Nancy, Rachel, Matthew, all those people they were there in the top. Guys, please do join.
We have 13 participants.
Let's wait for another 10 or 15 seconds if anyone joins. Yeah, Vipin is there. I think he was also at the top three in the first round in the morning. Shall we start, Nijo?
We'll just wait for another 5 seconds and we'll start.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I think we can go, Sisi.
Yeah. So the first question is, if you want to be able to start a flow yourself at any time, what type of trigger might you use?
The options are automatic, button, schedule, head trigger. You have received 7 answers now.
We got 11 answers, out of which 7 are correct. So the right answer is button. Let's go to the next question.
So
So Vipin is leading. Let's go to the next question. It's a multi-select. Which of the following are actions you can include? We've got only 8 responses, 8 correct answers. Let's see the scoreboard. It's still Vipin leading the scoreboard. Let's go to the next question. So which is not a type of flow that you can create in Power Automate? We have only 2 people who have given the right answer. Let's see the scoreboard now. It's still Vipin.
It's not saying this time.
Which of the following best describes a prediction model? Predict a yes or no, predict the number of objects, predict the meaning of text, predict how profitable a project may be.
The three correct answers. Six.
Yeah. Let's
Six.
see. Okay. So
So
Siddesh and Afrin are coming up, but it's still Bipin who is leading.
now it's the last question.
So it's the last question of this round. Which best describes the relationship between triggers and actions? So the option 1 is actions are taken by the users to start triggers. Option 2 is trigger determined by app creator while actions are determined by users. Trigger determines what the start of flow and action determines what happens. Actions can be triggered in certain type of flows. We have 11 people who have given the correct answer. Let's see the scoreboard. So we have Gauri, the Siddesh is in second, and I think it's Vipin. So we'll go to the next round, which will be on Power BI. So guys, you can join in now, whoever have not joined the first time. So the new pin is 6813621. On guys, join in. We have only 13 they've joined.
Come on, we have
We have
20
13.
participants.
We'll wait for another 10 seconds and we will start.
Yes, sir.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Start.
Let's start. It's a multi-select question. Which of the following is a valid source of data in Power BI? You need to choose two options. So we have 13 people given the right answer. Let's see the scoreboard.
It's
It's Subh
it's a-
Majumdar, Ansi, and Ali Raza in the top three. Let's go to the next question. Which of this is true for Power BI? User must log in with their credentials to view Power BI report and dashboards. Visualization should come in a single data source. You can access it only with Microsoft apps. None of the above. We have 6 people who have given the right answer. Let's see the scoreboard. Ansi and Afrin are back on top. Let's go to the next question. So it's again a multi-select. You have to choose two options. What is the relationship between Power BI Desktop and Power BI Service? So the first option is Power BI Desktop to generate content and Power BI Service to share the content. Power BI Desktop is a local application, whereas Power BI Service is an online SaaS. Power BI Desktop only local data, Power BI Service only cloud-based data, or Power BI Service is only designed or used on mobile device.
China answers time record.
So we have 10 people who have given the right answer, 10 and 8. Let's see how the count goes. It's still our Freen and Nancy at the top. Bipin is coming up. Let's go to the next question.
This is the last question for this round, guys.
Yeah, what is the benefit of the ask a question about your data section? The 8 people who have given the right answer. Let's see the scoreboard. At the third point, we have Afreen. Second, we have Bipin. And we have Ansi. Let's go to the last round of today's quiz session. So the new pin is 9099637. This is the last round, guys. Please join in. We'll wait for another 10 seconds and we'll start. Let's start. So how many trigger phrase are optimal for a specific topic? So three people have given the right answer. Let's see it's Bina, Vipin and Afrin. Let's go to the next. Which of this following is true about editing nodes? Can edit nodes for existing topics only, can edit nodes for system topics only, can edit nodes for both existing and system topics, cannot edit for existing topics or system topics.
12 answers now.
So 7 people have given the right answer. Let's see the scoreboard. Bipin is leading, Afrin in second, and Bina in third. Let's go to the next question. So it's a multi-select question, guys. What can a node do? Choose all that apply. Ask a question, call an action, show a message, go to another topic. So we have 11 people who have given the right answer. So Bipin is leading with Bina and Afrin following there. What kinds of user response can a chatbot listen for? Multiple choice, a number, a string, or all of the above? If 12 right answers, let's see the scoreboard. Bipin is leading. Let's go to the next question. So which of the following options when the end of conversion node is selected? So you need to choose two options. Return to menu, end with survey, go to another topic, transfer to agent.
Right, correct answer.
Yeah. So let's see who are the winners. We have Ansi in third position, Bina in second, and Bipin in the first. So we are done for today's quiz round, guys.
Thank you. We are processing the results from the previous rounds as well.
Yeah, so we will publish the results in our LinkedIn handle after consolidating all the scores from the previous rounds as well. And thanks for joining today. It was great, and our event got successful because you guys joined. So before we wind up, I will just share a quick screen for a feedback. Just give me 1 minute. So are you guys able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, so I would request everyone to go to menti.com and enter this code and give the feedback. So we have two questions. So please fill in your feedback for both the questions.
We have received 5 responses.
Yeah, guys, if you're not satisfied, also you can mention, because anyways we are not able to track who is typing what. That's also good feedback to us even.
Which would
Yeah, it
help
will.
us improve next time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, yes.
I think we can take another 2-3 minutes for the sessions, right, Golok? For the feedback.
Regarding feedback, maybe we'll wait for 1 minute, not more than that. I think that's fine for this one. Next question, another question is there, right?
Yeah.
By the end of both question, I think it should be 2-3 minutes, 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, then we're moving to the next question. Quite a few people have already answered. Okay, guys. I think we're done for today, and it was great having you all in this event for 2022. We will soon release the winners in our LinkedIn page, and also we'll be uploading our recording sessions in our YouTube channel. So please follow our social media handles to get more updates on the future events and all the upcoming updates.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, all the audience. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
joining.
Thank you, all of you. It was a fantastic session.
Thanks, Vipin.
Hello? 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 Ah, यार. Hello, is there anybody there? Hello? We have training. Hello? Am I audible? Hello? Hello, Sayali, are you there? Hello?